Today we're asking the question, can biodiversity be integrated into industrial scale solar energy? At EcoEnergy, the global non-profit eco-label for renewable energy, we always seek best practices and ways to make additional impact in the energy industry in relation to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. One of these ways we do this is by empirical research. We hired 3 trainee researchers from different backgrounds to do research on biodiversity and renewable energy. And today we are interviewing Sari Serenius, who has been working on improving biodiversity and policy related to industrial scale solar energy. It's great to have you here, Sari. Can you tell us a bit about your background and your work at EcoEnergy?
Thank you, Johannes. So I come from Uppsala University and I've been working on sustainable development there. And I have my background in social sciences. So I'm looking at the sustainable development from the point of view of society and how the society can develop itself towards more sustainable future.
If I may cite from the United Nations, in order to avert the worst impact of climate change and preserve a livable planet, there needs to be the emissions need to be reduced by 45% by 2030, and we need to reach net zero by 2050. And the energy sector is the source of around 3/4 of greenhouse gas emissions, and it holds the key to averting the worst effects of climate change. In the EU Renewable Energy Directive RED III, it sets an overall goal of 42.5% renewable energy for 2030. Well, climate change and biodiversity loss, they are deeply interconnected crises. And studies have shown that many solutions solving biodiversity loss also have an impact on climate change mitigation. And if we think about the overall goal of the green transition, it's to move to an energy system that's completely emission-free. But the reality is that there is no perfect solution, and all energy has environmental impacts. And the green transition, it must happen, but we cannot afford to cut biodiversity in the process of doing it. And Sari, what kind of pain points did you recognize when studying large-scale solar energy?
It's true that we, like everything humans develop, will always require some kind of land use changes or even mineral use, which they are both like the biggest issue related to our green transition. With solar and wind, we will always need to convert land to respond to our energy needs. But that's exactly what I wanted to tackle in my thesis. So how could we combine the energy transition in most environmentally way, and how can we account the environment when we are doing this green transition? Because like you said, we cannot use nature to reach our energy goals. We need to combine them both. We need to protect the biodiversity while we are doing our green transition. So while we think that green transition is the solution that may fix majority of the problems, and the emissions will be reduced for sure, but the question is are we introducing a new problem, which would be having the green transition but not really accounting for the environment.
Yeah, so in your thesis you essentially set out to find solutions and best practices for these challenges, and focused on Finland especially. What kind of findings did you have?
So precisely, I was focusing on industrial scale solar parks and how individual projects could consider the nature better. So especially I was focusing on design and the land types, which land type would be the best, how each design will fit the land type. And of course I also touched upon some policy frameworks here in Finland as well.
Yeah, land use is always a hot topic when we're talking about renewable energy. What's the key takeaway here? What do you recommend?
So yeah, the key takeaway when I was in Finland, solar is usually built on 4 types of land. One of them is forests, one of them is agricultural fields, then we have peatlands and wastelands. And starting off with forests, it's absolutely a no-go, at least in my conclusions. I wouldn't recommend using forests for solar building, as it will only have negative consequences. The moment you clear the forest and you put solar panels there, the forest cannot grow back anymore. So it's always a negative impact. Then moving on, agricultural lands, and yeah, they have possibilities, maybe also some barriers, but it's very good to convert those already degraded agricultural lands for solar, because then we can still take the advantage of this open white space and use it for solar. And about agricultural lands, it would be amazing to combine agriculture and solar production to have like a dual use, and this way we would reduce the needed land for both, because agriculture takes a lot of space, but also solar will require a lot of space. So if we could combine these two, agrivoltaics, it's very trendy.
Indeed, we have all seen the sheep going around the solar panels in the field,
Yeah.
keeping grazing the field so as to keep the solar panels running.
Yeah, the sheep are actually very good, and I touch upon that topic like very slightly on my paper, but it's very good. But however, in Finland the barrier is, especially if you wanna combine food farming or farming, if you wanna combine farming with energy production, there are some policy barriers that are not. It's about the agricultural subsidies. So if your production is 50% more electricity, or it was something 50-50,
okay,
but you will lose your subsidies. Like the energy production can be in very minor, like it can be minor part of your production, then it's fine. But if you want to scale it, yeah, it's troublesome.
I have heard there's some policies that prevent us from doing like things, because I have been asking people, why don't we build solar panels, for example, right next to highways? We need open space there, and it's already, nature has been cut away from there. Why not put solar panels there? And that also came back to regulation, if I remember correctly, and it had to do maybe with safety also there. So it's, yeah, but it's something we still we have chances to study those also. Maybe we can improve those things in the future. But moving back from agrivoltaics back to the land types, there may be some we didn't cover yet.
So yeah, there are also 2 missing land types. So we also build solar on wastelands, and that's very good. It's already degraded land, and yeah, the way to improve biodiversity on that landscape is only up, because it's already bad, and you just add there things and you will do your best to improve it. So that's the best one. So the last one is peatlands. There is not yet much studies regarding it, but so far it seems quite good if you do the restoration measures well. And then those panels, they are there 30 to 40 years, and then the land has this whole time to rest and restore itself. And of course there are some occasional maintenance visits, but they are very minor disturbance. So they are also very potential.
Yeah, but it does not end with just a location, because as you talk, biodiversity is always a local thing. So you also talk about ecological design ideas in your work. Can you walk us through some of those?
So yes, first design issue that I was focusing on was the fencing. So solar sites, they're always fenced for security reasons. But however, the fencing is an issue for the movement of animals. So yeah, it's harming it. And this made me wonder, like, is fencing always necessary? Yeah, for sure it's necessary if you want to secure your investment. But also, is there some other ways? For example, ditches around the solar site. This is something I discussed with one of my interviewees. They told me that they have a site being built on peatlands, and over there they haven't fenced the whole area, but it's actually surrounded by ditches. So this is how they can kind of like separate their land. But also there are some existing ideas already for the fencing. Yeah. And one is to have a permeable fence, so fence that is like big enough for smaller mammals to go through. And also in one of my interviews we also discussed about having tunnels below the fences. So this will also allow little animals to access the area. It's still harming the migration of bigger animals, such as mooses, which we have a lot in Finland. But also sometimes fences are necessary, especially if you want to combine with agrivoltaics, and as we discussed about the sheep, you need to be able to keep the sheep in the area, so of course then you will have fencing. So it also depends on the context.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I heard the story about the San Joaquin kid fox. That's a like endangered fox in the United States, and what they did, they left a gap in the fence that let it pass through. But at the same time, the biggest predator for that fox is the coyote. So it's narrow enough so the coyote doesn't get in. So it's a sanctuary essentially for the kid fox at the same time. So I think that's also a good example of like good ecological design.
Yeah, no, that also came up in one of the interviews. What's also important in design in these solar sites is habitat creation. So we have this one type of land, but making different kind of habitats in there is very good for biodiversity. And what I mean by habitat creation is just, they seem very simple measures. And this can be just like having some rock piles in there, especially like amphibians or reptiles. They really enjoy those. And birds, they also use rock piles for nesting. Some birds, smaller birds. You can have some ponds in there. So just have some water elements in there. It's also very good for birds and other animals. And also one is especially important would be living dead wood laying around the place. It can be standing dead wood when it would be like 1 meter high at least, or then we can also have those laying dead woods. These three things, they already bring so much biodiversity and different habitats for different species, these little things. Native plants to attract pollinators.
Yeah, you also talk about community use in your thesis.
Yeah, so as we have already mentioned, the dual use opportunities, I was also thinking like how would we dual use these land areas, not just for energy production, but also activating the local communities. And this is also linked to design considerations. For example, the flower planting. Also ideas that came up were like, what if we had some planting boxes on the sites where maybe some close by local community can go and plant their whatever vegetables, flowers, whatever they like.
Sounds logical.
Yeah,
why not design the space to be used as efficiently as possible and to promote biodiversity at the same time? But what does the regulatory and political landscape for solar development look right now? And what should we expect in the future?
So currently the regulatory framework, it's still under construction, for reasons such as the solar energy is scaling up so quickly in Finland. So maybe they haven't really been able to keep up with the pace. So this is representing some challenges, and the inconsistent permitting is causing some trouble for the solar developers because they are not sure how long each project permitting will take or so on. But while it's still under development, it does present some possibilities because we can still design the policy and streamline it and make it better. And for example, incentives, ecological compensation measures for the developers to consider while they're building, and so on. So there are good things coming maybe.
I hope we will see that soon. Sari, thank you so much for your research, interest and action on this crucial topic. It has been an honor having you here at EcoEnergy. And where can people find your work?
So my work will be published on Uppsala University database, and we will also link it here, right, Johannes?
Yes,
Yeah.
below.
And yeah, thank you for having me.
This has been a quick overview in the research in the field of renewable energy. If you would like to do more for people and the planet, consider asking for EcoEnergy eco-labeled energy from your local energy provider.